What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. This is where we're taking a final look at week 1 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. And what I like to do in these videos is go over a small core group of players in each position, build a lineup as we progress through it, and at the end I run my optimizer to see who is popping the most as of right now. But anyway, if this is your first time here, my name is Chris Pinnell. I like to cover NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. Also, if you do enjoy today's free content, make sure you leave a like on the video. Even if you don't, consider leaving a like as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, what you mean to me in the comments, call me ugly. I don't care either way, but I would love to hear from you. And also, if you ever want access to anything that I'm showing you here on the screen, it's all available in the link down below in the description or the pinned comment. And it's completely free for a week because Patreon is offering free week trials. I have all the data you need here, projections, ownership projections, cheat sheets, and my Discord community. And I do cover other sports as well if you are interested. Again, completely free for a week. If you want to try it, be my guest. If not, that's totally fine. But let's dive into it here. And up top, we have the man Joe Burrow, 71 on DK, 79 on FanDuel. I'm not going to deep dive on this too much because I did mention a lot of this in my first video. If you guys want to check that out, I dropped it, I believe, last Sunday or before Labor Day. The same thoughts here still apply with Joe Burrow. We did get confirmation that he's going to be good to go for this game, so obviously that's some pretty good news. And I do like the game environment overall here. 1.5 point spread, 47.5 point over-under, which I believe is second on the slate, only behind that Chargers and Miami game. So definitely want to try to at least get some exposure here in tournaments. Personally, for me, I feel like I'd rather get to Deshaun Watson down there at $6,000 just because I feel like the upside is somewhat similar. And I realized Deshaun Watson did not look good at all last season. So if you're just going off of last year's numbers, I mean, yeah, Joe Burrow is obviously the much better play, although he's still more expensive. We know how good Burrow is, top 2, top 3 quarterback in the NFL with elite weapons in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And the Browns defense can certainly be beatable, even though they are on the road. But for me personally, I just think Watson's the guy I'll get to more because I just want to save a little bit of money, and he still has good weapons in Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tillman, the rookie, second-round pick. He's a big body. You have David Njoku, Nick Chubb on that offense. Like, both teams are absolutely loaded on offense. But we know Cleveland has a very tough time actually getting good results. Even though they have the players and the pieces, it just doesn't always work out. But this is certainly a really good game to target for tournaments, so I'm not going to deep dive there. But I think for GPPs, it's a very solid way to go. But Deshaun does have my slight preference there because of the price. Then we have Justin Herbert and Tua. I left Tua off here just because I don't see myself getting to him too much. I prefer Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle as run back options on Justin Herbert stacks. If you want to play Tua, I will not talk you off of it. But this is definitely going to be the most popular game on the slate. 50.5 point over under, 26.75 applied team total here, and only a 3-point spread. And we're playing in a dome, so don't have to really worry about weather whatsoever. And as far as Herbert is concerned, this is a team that loves us for the football. We have a kind of revamped offense with Kellen Moore this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. And we have elite weapons across the board in this game. On the other side, we have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, arguably the best 1-2 punch in the NFL outside. And on the flip side, for Justin Herbert, we have Austin Eckler, we have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and that's just an excellent trio right there. And you have Joshua Palmer, the rookie, you have Gerald Everett. So no shortage of offensive weapons here, and it's just hard not to like this game. If I'm playing cash games this week, and if I am spending up at quarterback, Justin Herbert would be the main option there. Also, a great matchup versus Miami, who had the third most points per game in the quarterback position last year. And this team should throw the football a ton, threw the ball nearly 40 times per game last year. We have Kellen Moore as the OC now, which should be exciting. So I'm assuming nothing's going to change too much there, and it should be a fun offense to be a part of this season. So $1,600 and the most likely best game on the slate. I do like Justin Herbert a lot for cash games. Tournaments, you can still play him, but just try to get a little bit different because he should be chalky. Trevor Lawrence was a guy that I did add on here. I do have interest in the Jags offense overall versus Indy. Now, I would only do it for tournaments, but if you want to get some Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk stacks, the problem is on Indy, there's not really anybody I want to run it back with because the only one on Indy that I have too much interest in is Anthony Richardson, and I can't play 2 quarterbacks. And they should do in that super flex thing I think they're doing for the Thursday through Monday slate, which we're not going to talk about here. But if you're looking for a run back option, I mean, Michael Pittman's the obvious guy, but it just feels really gross. So I just think full-on Jacksonville stacks might be okay without a run back option on this slate. But I do like Trevor Lawrence. They're going to throw the ball a ton. The only issue would be is if they get to a big lead, but they're on the road. It's only a 4.5 point spread, so I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. And 25.5 implied team total looks pretty good. Elite weapons, so definitely a fan of T-Law and GPPs. Kirk Cousins, nothing has changed here. This is a game that should be played at a pretty decent pace. They're playing at home in the dome, no weather concerns, and your 26-point implied team total. He is the absolute best wide receiver in football to get the ball to and other great weapons. So I like Kirk Cousins a lot for GPPs. And the run back options, there's plenty. There's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, even Rashad White. So I like that game a lot for tournaments. Geno Smith, $6,100. We did get news that the rookie Jackson Smith from Ohio State is going to be good to go. So we have the full onslaught of weapons here. Ken Walker's off the injury report. We have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Going up against a Rams team that's going to struggle early this season, especially without Cooper Kupp. I am not sure how they're going to move the ball on offense. I guess the Seattle Seahawks defense isn't amazing, so that's going to help a little bit. But a really healthy 25-point implied team total, $6,100 for a guy that was pretty good last year and can average around 20, 30 rushing yards. Definitely don't mind Geno. We already talked about Deshaun Watson. Anthony Richardson was someone that I just added on here. Did not have him on the video earlier in the week. But looking at my projections, and it's a decent matchup versus Jacksonville, I think AR, just because of his rushing upside, it's going to make him viable. Looking at how I have the QB statted out on this slate of the guys we're talking about, I actually have AR third. Now, that might be a bit aggressive, but it's not like I am giving him superhero numbers. I have him at 225 passing yards, right around 9, 10 rushing attempts, 40 rushing yards, which I think is Vegas props at 45. So even then, I'm a little bit under on that. Then 0.2 rushing touchdowns. That equates to just under 19 points for a 3.4x value. That's not bad at all for $5,600. I don't think he's going to be great through the air or anything. But in this game environment, if they're going to be trailing versus Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, if AR can just get us 40, 50 rushing yards with a chance of rushing touchdown, that's not bad at all. So even in cash games, I actually think he's somewhat viable. And I'm kind of liking him more than Howe as of right now in cash as well. So that did change a little bit for me. So it's one of those other things I want to talk about where, things do change throughout the weekend. So I wanted to get some updated thoughts out there. Then if you are going bottom of the barrel, basement hunting for quarterbacks, we have Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield. Already talked about these guys, so I don't want to go too in depth here, but Howell gets a pretty good matchup versus pretty much the worst team in the league this season, the Arizona Cardinals. The problem is I found myself liking Brian Robinson a lot. And if I like Robinson, a guy that's not going to be too involved in the passing game, I have a hard time playing him with Howell. So that's why in cash games, if you are going cheap, I feel like AR might be the better option there, because then you can play Robinson and you're not going to have that negative correlation. Overall, I think Howell is fine, but he's looking more so as a tournament play for me rather than a cash game guy. And then Baker Mayfield, this is if you hate yourself, don't watch the game. It's probably not going to be pretty, but this is a decent offense for him. I think the system will work well for him at $4,100 just to get there. I should throw the ball quite a bit. I have him right around 35-ish pass attempts, and when 35 of those pass attempts, a portion of those go to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, good things can happen in a good matchup versus the Vikings, who definitely bled some points to quarterbacks and just passing yards in general last season. So if you feel ugly and you hate yourself, play Baker Mayfield, and it's probably not going to be great, but if he can get you 15, 16 points of low ownership with a ceiling of even more if the touchdowns are there, I don't hate it in GPP. All right, so let's move over to DraftKings here, and we're just going to have to pick a random quarterback, and then we'll build from there. Again, do not copy and paste the lineup I am building. We're just doing it on the fly to see what fits as we talk through it. Do not pre-build this or anything. But I'm feeling a little bit of Kirk Cousins here at $6,300. Let's plug him in there. And it looks like we're going to be going with the Vikings and Tampa Bay stack. All right, so moving over to the running back position, my stance hasn't really changed, where I'm more than likely going to be spending down at the position, because if you were like me this weekend, I find myself wanting to spend up at the wide receiver position. I even like some of the expensive quarterbacks. I like guys like TJ Hawkinson, and especially in my stack with Kirk Cousins, and I also want Justin Jefferson. So at some point, we're going to start running out of money. If I am spending up, Austin Eckler is the guy for me over Christian McCaffrey. He's minus 225 for anytime touchdown score, which is by far the highest on the slate. I think Nick Chubb is second at minus 150. For reference, CMC is at plus 100. I don't think the touchdown rate is going to continue for Austin Eckler, where he had like a touchdown per game last season, but with his involvement in the passing game, super safe floor, super high ceiling, and he is playable with Justin Herbert because of his work in the passing game. Josh Jacobs is in a similar tier to Austin Eckler, but not as much work in the passing game, so not going to be as safe. But, I mean, the guy was incredible last year, about 20-some touches per game, and just, he was so good. About 100 rushing yards and got into the end zone quite often as well. Now, starting to get into the range of guys where I'm going to find myself landing on more often than not, just because of the builds that I have, because I can't play expensive everybody. We have Madison on down here, who I think all project pretty decent, at least have decent usage projection. And we just kind of have to hope that they fall into the end zone here and there or catch a couple of passes. But Madison here is in a pretty good spot Vegas-wise. So if you're looking at the script, they're 5.5-point favorites, 26-point implied team total. There's a decent chance they're in scoring position, and if they can get around the goal line, Madison's going to be the guy that's going to be able to plunge into the end zone. No Dalvin Cook this year, so I think Madison having a projection for over 15 total touches is certainly fine in this game. Aaron Jones is in a great matchup here. No Aaron Rodgers, so we have Jordan Love under center. There's no Christian Watson. So that just ups the usage for the run game here, which I think they're going to run the ball a lot this season. But this is a great matchup on the ground versus Chicago. They were awful versus running backs last year. 30th DVA versus the run, and allowed the second most points against the running back position. Yes, A.J. Dillon does exist, but Aaron Jones is more dynamic, and he does offer you more upside in the passing game. So $6,300 for a guy that's over 5 yards per carry. I'm liking Jones here a lot, whether it be tournaments or cash games. Cam Akers at $6,200. With no Cooper Kupp, everybody on the Rams gets a bit of a bump. The problem is, while they do get a usage bump, this offense is going to suck. You have Van Jefferson as your wide receiver 1, then you have that Pikachu guy, you have Tutu Atwell, Ben Skowronek, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, who's pretty much the Walmart version of Cooper Kupp. They look the exact same out there. I hate when they're on showdown slates because you have no idea which one is which. So this is going to be a pretty bad, anemic offense. So I like the usage here for Cam Akers, but I just have my concerns of how they're going to move the football. Kenneth Walker, $6,000, popped up on the injury report, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday, but he got removed. So $6K here versus the Rams is a 4.5-point favorite at home, 25-point implied team total. Should get you 15 plus touches. I like it at that price point. Not scared of the Rams defense. Javonte Williams, he's going to be a bit of a wild card early in the season, but this is a good matchup versus Vegas. We know the talent is there. The problem is the injury concern just because of what he had last season. But if he can get you double-digit touches, double-digit carries with maybe a couple passes here and there, I think Javonte's fine at $5,700, but he's a tournament option only for me. Raheem Mostert's also a GPP only guy for me just because I have so much interest in the passing game here. The ownership should be somewhat low on Raheem, but if he's going to get opportunity, we know no Jeff Wilson, he's on the IR. The backup, Devon Achane, the rookie, he got removed off the injury report, so he's going to be able to go. So it's not going to be just Raheem Mostert. But we know Mostert, when he gets the opportunity, he's typically pretty good at it. The guy's a speed demon, around 5 yards per carry. So if we can get 12 plus carries here, I think there's some upside for Mostert. But I don't think he's going to be a force in the passing game or anything. And I'm sure Achane will take some work. But I do think he's tournament viable if you're trying to get off the chalkiness of the passing game in this game. Just play the run game to get a little bit different. And then two very popular cash game options, I believe, will be Brian Robinson and Jamal Williams. There is nothing sexy at all about rostering these two, but they're going to get volume. And if they can just get into the end zone, you will be happy. I don't think we're going to expect too much in the passing game from either, but I think Robinson could get close to 20 carries in this game. He's a 7-point favorite at home versus arguably the worst team in football. And Jamal Williams is basically just due to attrition. He's the only guy back there left. Miller's banged up, and then obviously Alvin Kamara suspended. I saw some people saying Taysom Hill could be the RB2 in this game, which I guess is certainly possible. So if you do roster Jamal Williams and you see Taysom Hill steal a 2-yard touchdown at the goal line, we can all tilt together. And it's a terrible matchup versus Tennessee. They only allowed 60 rushing yards per game last year. Definitely a pass funnel defense. But if you're just looking for volume, these two do make sense. And heading back over to our build here, like I said, I am probably going to go cheap at running back, especially in this build, because since we have Kirk, we're going to have to play Jefferson. I just don't see a scenario where Kirk Cousins does well without Justin Jefferson going off. So we just have to have that correlation there. So let's scroll all the way down. And if you want to get boring, we could just play Robinson and Jamal Williams. Although I'd like this to be a little bit more GPP-ish, so I don't want to go full on chalk. So we're going to avoid Jamal, just because I could see that being bad chalk, just because the matchup is absolutely awful, and you never know. Taysom Hill could be really annoying. So we do have Kenneth Walker, who's an option. We have Javonte Williams. Let's just roll Walker out here, because I think he's going to be the only Seattle exposure we get. I do want a piece of that offense. So I think it's a pretty decent start as far as going cheap running back is concerned. Moving over to wide receiver, I know people like to talk about wide receiver, cornerback matchups and things like that, and just really matchups in general, but honestly, I just don't think they matter that much. Like, it all just comes down to the stacks that we have, the quarterbacks that we're playing, and what's our run back options. I think some people try to dive into it too much, and I think you're just ending up hurting yourself more than you're going to benefit it. But anyway, let's start up top. We have Justin Jefferson. He's 100% in our lineup, because if you're playing Kirk Cousins, you are playing Justin Jefferson. I don't see how Kirk Cousins goes off without Justin Jefferson going off. So you just have to play the two together. They are married. It just makes sense. If you are rostering anybody from that Chargers and Dolphins game, it should say anybody, I mean the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert or Tua, Tyreek Hill is an excellent option, because whether you're using Herbert or if you're using Tua, he's either your stack option with the quarterback or he's your run back option. And there's a very good chance Tyreek Hill goes off in this game. I believe I currently have him as my wide receiver 2 just behind Justin Jefferson, or it might even be flip-flop there, but obviously the top 2 options this week. Love them both in pretty much any format, although I think for cash game purposes, Tyreek Hill is probably the number 1 option as far as the expensive wide receivers are concerned. Jamar Chase is GPP only for me. It's pretty much only if I'm playing Burrow or as my run back option with Deshaun Watson. Keenan Allen, I think, is one of the safest options on the entire board, and for those of you over on PrizePicks, from a code CPIN if you are a new user, link down below in the description or the pinned comment. I do like the over on Keenan Allen. He's currently at 14.5 fantasy points. I have him at 15.6, so that's 1.1 points over. Don't think that's a bad option there. And that's, I think, a pretty modest projection. I think it's like 0.4 touchdowns Also 76 receiving yards, 69 receiving yards, something around that, and just over 6 catches, which I definitely think Keenan Allen can certainly do. And he's been the focal point of the offense. I think we all saw that news alert. So I'm pretty excited to see what he can do in Kellen Moore's system, but definitely like him a lot here. And if you're playing Herbert, I mean, you don't have to play Keenan because there's other options, but he's definitely the top guy. Jalen Waddle, same category as Tyreek Hill, but obviously not going to have the same kind of projection. DK Metcalf, if you are playing Geno, the other options are not listed here, but that does not mean you can't play them. I just can't list the entire slate or we'd be here for an hour. So the rookie from Ohio State, you can play Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant as well at the tight end position, or DK Metcalf. I'm totally fine with that. And if you're stacking that game, the run back options are absolutely free, so it's not hard to do whatsoever. Because if you look at the bottom, you have Puka Nacua, who has a super fun name to say, and you have Tutu Atwell. They are the bare minimum price. I don't have Van Jefferson on here, but he'll be the wide receiver 1, and he's totally an option as well. And also you have Tyler Higbee, who we'll talk about the tight end position. Chris Olave is a one-off here. If you want to play him in cash, I get it. Derek Carr under center. We have Michael Thomas, so it's not like Olave is going to be the only guy there, but it's a pretty good matchup versus Tennessee Titans pass defense, pass funnel like we talked about. They're so good versus the run. They're going to have to bleed points or yards somewhere, and that is mostly through the pass, and they did struggle versus wide receivers last season, so I think Olave is a one-off is fine. If you don't play Michael Thomas in tournaments, go for it. Calvin Ridley, if you're playing Trevor Lawrence, him and Christian Kirk are going to be viable. Obviously, Kirk had great numbers last year, but with Calvin Ridley joining the team now, I don't think you can expect the same production, but Ridley, he'll be the alpha dog there, and at $6,500, decent chance that's the cheapest we see him all year. I think he'll be in that 7K range pretty soon. Chris Godwin, if you are stacking up that game, he's a fine run back option, or if you're using Baker Mayfield, don't forget about Mike Evans as well, who's the big play threat. And Godwin's one of those guys who I think is completely fine as a one-off. Mike Williams, GPP play if you're using Herbert or just stacking that game up in general. I talked about Kirk. Jaden Reed, but no Christian Watson. He'll be an option at 3K bare minimum. Should get a handful of targets. Not saying they're going to be pretty targets from Jordan Love, but you can't ask for too much when you're only $3,000. All right, so moving back over to our lineup here, the first thing we have to do is lock in JJ, just because we have cousins that are married together. And that's going to eat up a good chunk of our salaries. So we now have just under $5,000 left per player, but we do need a run back option from this game. And I'm probably going to end up double stacking. So that would either mean Jordan Addison or KJ Osborne. But don't forget, we also have TJ Hawkinson. And with all the injuries at tight end this week, he looks like he's going to be the one big name left standing, especially if Mark Andrews happens to be out. So I think Hawkinson will probably be our double stack option. So I guess we can just plug him in now. I know we haven't talked about tight end yet, but just so we can get that plugged in to know what kind of salary we had to work with. It's going to drop down a little bit. We're now under $4,500 left per player, but don't forget, we can plug in a cheap defense and it'll go back up a bit. But we do have that run back option, so it's either going to leave us with Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. If you want to get nuts, you could also look at Trey Palmer, the rookie. But for me, I just feel a little bit better with Chris Godwin there. Should get you probably around 8 to 9 targets. I think that's what it's in my projections. 5 to 6 catches and probably around 60 yards. You're just going to have to hope he falls into the end zone. But I think that's a pretty good start. So we added Jefferson. We added Hawkinson just to get that double stack there, running it back with Godwin. And I feel pretty good about it. $4,000 left per player, which I realize is not a lot, but we have cheap wide receivers and a cheap defense as well. And everyone's favorite time, tight ends and defense is absolutely exhilarating. We'll start top with the man, Mark Andrews, who, if he's healthy, I'm probably not playing him, but I put him on here because he's a talking point, because if he happens to miss, we have Isaiah Likely, who's cheap, and every single time he can be the starting tight end, he's always going to be interesting just because he's got tons of talent. So if Andrews is out, Likely's the tight end. If not, then it looks like TJ Hawkinson is going to be our spend-up option, who I do like, and we already put him in our lineup, and he had no less than 6 targets in a game with Kirk Cousins under center. We got traded in Minnesota, and I like this game environment, so TJ should probably see 5, 6 plus targets here, and I think he can do some damage. Tyler Higbee, Matthew Stafford with no Cooper Kupp. He's going to be one of the main options here. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but I have him projected for over a 20% target share. Last season, he had a 22% target share in general, so I could see that getting bumped up to like somewhere around 24, 25%. It's just a really bad offense. There is not much to be too excited about here. And if you're looking at Seattle, they were a team that you could pick on with tight ends last year. They were 31st versus the position and allowed nearly 17 DraftKings points per game. So Higbee will be fine. A boring play, but I mean, if you can get 5 plus targets at tight end position, I think you'll take it. David Njoku is a guy with a ton of talent. You have Deshaun Watson at our center, should be a decent scoring game. And I might be just completely making this up, but I feel like David Njoku's got a pretty good history versus Cincy. Means nothing, but just in my memory of watching Browns games, I think that's what it is. But I do like Njoku here. Just try to get a cheap touchdown or 50 yards. You will take that any day. Last season, around 45 yards per game on just over 5 targets and just under a 20% target share. Noah Fant, if you want a cheap stacking option with Geno Smith. Hayden Hurst projects well, so I think he'll pop up quite a bit. Not that I'm super excited about playing Hurst, but he should get you close to 5 targets. Then Luke Musgrave, the rookie, they drafted him for a reason. He's $2,900, dirt cheap. If he catches a couple passes, you will take it because he's below 3K, and you can't complain too much. And then moving over to defenses, there's only one thing I do with defenses, and that is I scroll to the bottom and I look to see what's the most viable Vegas-wise, just looking for low totals or something like that. And obviously the Commanders are going to be the mega chalk this week, only a 15.75 applied team total. Chase Young is out, which kind of sucks, but they're 7-point favorites at home. They honestly project as the defense one for me this week, and they're the best point per dollar option. So yeah, expect some mega chalk of the Commanders. I don't hate the Packers defense. I think you can play them. Justin Fields will have some ownership, but 21.5 applied team total, 1.5 point spread. I don't hate the Packers. I don't hate the Raiders down there. I don't like that they're on the road mile high, which is always kind of sucky, but 23.5 applied team total is not awful. I'm just not someone that ever pays up for defense. Like, I just don't think it's worth it. Defenses are too random, too many variables, and why pay 4K for a defense when, I mean, a $2,500 defense has pretty similar upside. Obviously, the Ravens are going to project well. They're my defense too projection-wise, but I'm not going to get 4K of my salary for a defense ever. All right, so moving back over to DraftKings, we got to bang this lineup out. I'm just going to plug in the Commanders defense. If they fail, they fail. It's whatever, but they do project pretty well for me. So we have 2 spots left. That's $4,600 left. There's a couple ways we could go. We could go more balanced, or we could go punt option and then try to get a better flex. So if you wanted to go with an absolutely free wide receiver this week, we could plug in Tutu Atwell. Again, I would not expect fireworks here, but just open up the salary a bit. And that would put us at $6,200 for the flex spot. So I know there's quite a few players that do look kind of appealing here. If you wanted to go tight end, you could have Mark Andrews, but he's a big question mark this week. But we're left with a guy like Cam Akers, who I do like. I'm not sure I like doubling up on the Rams offense here, but it's certainly an option. You have Amari Cooper, who's fine for GPPs. You have Javonte Williams. You have Mike Williams if you want to get exposure to that game, which I actually don't think is a bad idea whatsoever. We have Christian Kirk. So I'll let you guys use your own imagination. You could always drop the defense too, to like a Raiders to get some more salary to work with. I'd be fine with that, but I won't build it off for you. And again, don't copy and paste this. We built this on the fly. Make your own decisions, but I mean, it's not a bad roster construction. Like, the bones don't look too bad of it, but you can do it in your own way. Like I said in the beginning, I just want to run the optimizer to see who is popping as of right now. These are not final projections. I'm going to be doing some updates later tonight and obviously tomorrow morning, depending on inactives or actives, whoever decides to play or not. But I did just put a couple settings in to at least have a pass catcher in every lineup of that my quarterback is in, and then just wanted to run like quick 20 lineups to see who is popping right now. So we'll pop the builds up. Look at some of the usage. As you can see, Jamal Williams, who probably going to have a lot of ownership this week. I did put some randomness on there, so these are not exact projections, but yeah, Williams popping quite a bit. Austin Eckler, like I said, if I am spending up for any running back, he's the guy that's going to get jammed in the most. Chris Godwin, Commanders defense. Baker Mayfield's getting some love. Like I said, it's ugly, but he does make stacks work, especially if you're trying to get some exposure to guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Tyreek Hill's up there, TJ Hawkinson. Michael Thomas is even getting some love, who we didn't talk about, but is projecting not too bad for me, actually popping up more than Chris Olave did in this quick 20 crunch. Don't copy and paste this, guys. Again, if you're building 150 or 20 lineups, you got to spend more time than just clicking optimize. You got to make sure you build it to your likeness. But just so, as you can see, it follows examples here. In this first lineup, we have Joe Burrow. Click on that so it highlights it. Then we have Jamar Chase paired with him. We have David Njoku as the run back option. And then it's filled with some other guys we talked about throughout the video. So just an example there. And if you guys do want access to this, shows you the usage for your teams, what games exposure you're getting to. Like I said in the beginning, link is down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. And it's completely free for a week if you want to try it out. But with that being said, guys, that's all I got for this week's video. If you did enjoy, or even if you didn't, consider leaving a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'll be happy to answer them down below in the comments. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.